One word can sum up last night: bizarre. A masterful catch that nearly knocked the wall down. An ump's change of heart yielding Klesko's 15th homer, and a furious skipper getting thrown out of the game. What will tonight bring? The Braves lean to the port side again as Steve Avery faces the Marlins next.
TBS Sports presents Atlanta Braves Baseball.
Hello again, everybody, along with Joe Simpson, Skip Terry, welcoming you to another night of Atlanta Braves baseball. From Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami, where the Braves and Marlins will meet again, and Atlanta will try to make it 2 in a row over the Florida team. Tell you, one guy who's been red hot for Atlanta is Ryan Klesko. He is on a tear.
Especially with the long ball, Skip. 7 hits in his last 17 at-bats. That includes 4 home runs. That's the good news. Maybe on the downside would be Steve Avery, who really needs a good start. The month of June, his ERA is over 8. Not that the other starters have been working at a blistering pace either, but Steve needs a good start. He's allowed 22 earned runs in his last 24 innings pitched, and he needs a good start, much like he had against the Marlins back in May when he shut him out for 8 innings. But he'll be out there tonight without the right side of his diamond.
That's right. Jeff Blauser will not play. Rafael Belliard takes his place, and of course, Terry Pendleton back in Atlanta on the disabled list, and Bill Pecota will start there. We'll be back with the starting lineups, then the play-by-play story right after this.
Welcome back to Joe Robbie Stadium, everybody. Game 2 of the 4-game series between the Braves and the Florida Marlins. Atlanta won last night to improve their record on the year to 3-2 over Florida. The Sears die-hard starting lineup for Bobby Cox tonight does have some changes in it. Roberto Kelly will lead it off. Mark Lemke will move up to the second spot since Jeff Blauser has the night off with that cracked rib. Ryan Klesko bats third. Fred McGriff, David Justice, and Javier Lopez. That remains the same in the middle of the lineup. Bill Pecota moves up to number 7. Rafael Belliard inserted to play shortstop, batting 8th, and Steve Avery, the pitcher, bats 9th. The defense for the Marlins has some changes too. Jeff Conine moves back out to left field. Chuck Carr and Gary Sheffield, the other 2 outfielders. Dave Magadan back at third base. Kurt Abbott at shortstop. Brett Barbary at second. Garrett Colburn will get the call at first base tonight. Benny Santiago will be behind the plate, and on the mound, veteran Mark Gardner, 32 years old, 6'1", 205, out of Fresno, California. You see his record 2-2. His last start, a beauty against the Montreal Expos. He shut him out on 7 hits for 7 2/3 innings, and you would look, when you look at his numbers, might think that he's better suited to start. That's where he has been most of his pro career, is in the rotation. His numbers out of the bullpen not quite as good with Florida this year. Umpires for tonight's ball game: behind the plate, Brian Gorman. At first base, Jeff Kellogg. Terry Tata at second. Eric Gregg at third. And again, kudos to these guys for getting the home run call correct last night, Skip.
Absolutely. Even Rene Lachemann said today, yeah, they finally got the call right. The pitch to Kelly, and the game is underway. The fastball high, 1 ball, no strikes. Roberto, 2 out of 4 last night, drove in a run and scored 2. The breaking ball is Gardner's bread and butter. It's his best pitch.
The knuckle curve, too. Much like, remember Bert Hooton?
Yeah. Bert Hooton threw one of those. And there it is, a ball and 2 strikes. 14 walks in 46 innings for Gardner. So his control is pretty good. Didn't miss by much. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
He tied a Marlins record with 10 strikeouts against Montreal when he worked 7 2/3 innings.
They said he had a better fastball than they remembered when he was with them. Grounded into left field on a 2-2 pitch. Kelly continues his good work with a single to left. He is the one bona fide base stealing threat in the Atlanta lineup. He's 15 out of 24, and here's Mark Lemke. Schlemmer with an 8-game hitting streak. He hasn't had much luck against Mark Gardner. He is 0 for 7. Sort of a different mindset, too, moving around in the order and hitting second.
Absolutely. A few more things to consider when you've got some guys in front of you that might steal.
Pop. Back comes Santiago. Will he have room? He might have had room, but he didn't offer it.
Like he misjudged it a little bit. You couldn't tell if the ball actually bounced behind that railing or to the side of it. Let's look here. Actually, if he'd gone around that railing, he might have had a chance to catch the ball because it bounced right in front of the Braves dugout.
If he'd have just felt his way down that railing. Well, Lemke gets a swing or two on the house here.
Bat Boy was ready.
He was more surprised it wasn't caught than anybody. High and outside, snap throw. He just got back, and he went in standing up. Elsewhere in baseball, 1-2, Detroit leads Texas 5-0 in the third. They're still batting. They've scored 3. Oakland 5 in the first at Boston. They're still batting. Oakland's won 7 games in a row. Minnesota over Cleveland 1-0 after an inning. National League stuff just getting underway. 1-1 instead to first. Kelly scrambles back.
One thing early in the year that the Marlins worked hard on with Benito Santiago was to get back to some fundamentals and some basics catching. He won't throw quite as much as he used to from the knees.
High and away, 2 balls and a strike. Bears repeating. The Marlins are just 5-21 against left-hand starters, the worst record in all of baseball in that regard. Runner goes, base hit right field. Kelly is on his way to third. Lemke has a 9-game hitting streak. They played hit and run. And here comes the hottest hitter in baseball right now, Ryan Klesko.
Boy, that was a good job of hitting by a number 2 hitter. Lemke's hit in that spot in the order before, of course, but not lately. And boy, he got a high fastball to pick on, too. With the runner going, you got to like that if you're the hitter.
Infield's going to play halfway already, it looks like. Now, wait a minute. Now they're going to pretty much drop back. Maybe a step or 2 in from their normal positions. High and outside, 1 ball, no strikes.
One thing you'll notice is how dark the infield is here. They really water it down before the ball game every night, not just tonight, but every night, which kind of surprises me as much as the Marlins like to run and as much as Chuck Carr steals. Very damp.
Off his thumbs, evens the count. And as little as the Braves run, you'd think this would be one time they would save on the water bill.
And as quick as showers move in here, too.
And there's a good chance of that tonight. I think they said a 40% chance of rain. It's cooled off a bit. It's a nice evening here. There is a drive to deep center. Carr going back. He's going to make the catch, but the run will walk home. And if Ryan can pull that baby at all, it's 3-0. He drives in his 36th run of the year, and he hit the daylights out of it.
This was a nice swing. It looked like a breaking ball. The great thing about his swing is the fact that he can generate so much power to all fields, and it was a breaking ball down and away from him, and he still got good wood on it. Hitting against a firm front side. Great extension. Homers to left, homers to center. Saw one to right the other night in Montreal.
Tell you what, he is going to force him, like it or not, to play in him every day if he keeps this up. Another base hit to right field. Lemke around second. He is going to try, and Sheffield's throw will be cut off. And it's first and third with 1 out. McGriff rifles a single into right. David Justice, the batter, 3 out of 15 in his career against Gardner, but 2 of those hits have left the premises.
See Rene Latchman working in that notebook. He used to keep track of a lot of numbers and stats for Tony La Russa when he was his coach over at Oakland. And now he does it for himself, just to keep track of what pitch a batter hit and where he hit it.
A lot of Atlanta fans here. You can hear them holler as David is introduced. Braves with a chance at a big inning here. Javi Lopez will be next. First and third, one out, one in. Pop foul back and out of play. Boy, the pop foul that might have been caught and wasn't certainly looms large in this inning now. High and away. Justice has driven in 20 runs in his last 20 games.
And has his total up near 40 now. You mentioned that the evening's turned off pleasant here. How about the doubleheader in Arlington, Texas tonight? Got to be close to 100 degrees there. High humidity.
Hot shot. Gets through. Base hit. McGriff around second on his way to third. We'll see how they score it. Might be a boot on Colburn. It was hit awfully hard, however. We'll wait and see. In any event, it's 2-0, and we're first and thirding them to death. It's an RBI for Justice, because you can't assume a double play, no matter how they score it.
Marlins definitely want Colburn's bat in the lineup. He's very instrumental in their offense. But I tell you, his defense has always been a little bit of a question mark, and that one's going to be scored an error, and it should. To get the RBI, did they say?
They didn't say, but I think he has to. Because you can't assume a double play. So Javi Lopez will be the batter, and things have started just fine. Thank you. Javi Lopez with a chance to drive in a run. He is glad that June is over. 1 RBI in the month.
Well, he could match that right here. Base hit or a sacrifice fly.
Maybe he could do a little better than that.
He's going to have to stay with that curveball tonight. Make sure he doesn't chase any bad ones.
Strike over the inside corner, 0-1. Lopez 1 for 3 here last night. First time he's faced Mark Gardner. Oh, and 2. Strike 3 call. Curveball right in there. He took 3 straight strikes. 2 out.
He was looking for the breaking ball the first 2 pitches and took fastball strikes. Now he's looking fastball since he's behind in the count, and he gets the hook, and it's a beauty.
So it's up to Bill Pecota to keep the inning alive. Low and away, 1 ball, no strikes. Terry Matthews and Greg Maddux here tomorrow. We'll be with you a half hour earlier. Foul back. A ball and a strike.
Is hitting .250 as a replacement for Terry Pendleton.
That's going to reach the seats.
And of course, the last couple of days in Montreal and here in Florida, he's been instrumental in the Braves offense. Home run, a couple of doubles.
Throw to first. Justice gets back. They take the RBI away from Justice. I guess the assumption is that Colburn would have come home with the ball. So no RBI for David, at least for now. Strike, and the inning is over. So after a slow start, Gardner rallies to get a couple of guys looking. The Braves score 2 times, 3 hits, 1 error, 2 left. Bottom of the first, Atlanta 2. Florida comes to bat.
Good start for the Braves as we go to the bottom half of the first inning and check out the lineup tonight for Rene Latchman. Chuck Carr leads it off, then Dave Magadan and Gary Sheffield, the first 3 tonight. Then Conine, Colburn, Santiago, and Barbary. Kurt Abbott bats 8th. Mark Gardner, the pitcher, bats 9th. For the Braves defensively, Klesko, Kelly, and Justice. The infield the same except for Belliard in their shortstop for Blauser. Lopez behind the plate for Steve Avery, who makes his 17th start, 5-2 on the year. Lost his last outing against the Phillies, 5 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 7 runs.
Carr takes it outside, 1 ball, no strikes. He's 1-0 this year against the Marlins when 8 innings allowed 4 hits and no runs down here early in the year. The delivery swung and missed. Marlin people off the record will tell you they're disappointed with Carr because he refuses really to play the role of a leadoff man. He's a very aggressive hitter, but that's what got him to the major leagues. I sort of sympathize with him. 1-2 the count. He's been struggling yesterday, lately rather. 10 of his last 52, though he had 2 hits here last night.
It's like, to me, he's decided that he can hit like Gary Sheffield. Watch the whipping of the bat like Gary Sheffield.
Ground ball foul past third, where Cookie Rojas is on patrol. Vada Pinson over at first.
Gary Sheffield's been doing that all his life. That's the way he's always hit. People have tried to change him over the years, and it really hasn't succeeded, and no need to. He's been successful with it. It's kind of tough to adopt that pointing of the bat back at the pitcher and start trying to hit that way at the big league level.
Starter to go, held up. He's 7th on the team in walks. That's not so good for a leadoff man. Carr out of San Bernardino, California, lives in Tucson, Arizona. High fly ball, center field. Kelly barely has to move. 1 out. Carr ran out of gas, and here's Dave Magadan. Magadan hitting .256 on the year, 0 for 1 last night. Struck out as a pinch hitter. About time for him to be traded back to Seattle, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
The pitch. High, 1 ball, no strikes.
He was happy to come back to Florida. He was one of their most popular players last season before he was traded to the Mariners.
Lined into left field. That's why he was popular. Magadan aboard at first with 1 out for Gary Sheffield, who was 0 for 5 last night. The Marlins 13 games behind the Braves. 6 games under 500. Oakland now just 3.5 games out in that American League West. Texas leads it by 2.5, and they're 6 games under 500. The pitch. Swung and missed.
They started him with some change-ups early in the count last night. He likes to pull the ball, can drive it a long ways, as everybody knows, but sometimes overly aggressive.
A little bit inside.
He is a big fan in Bobby Cox, though.
Oh, yeah. He loves the way he swings the bat.
And 7 for 17 lifetime against Avery with a homer.
Grounded foul past third. The deal on Blauser is he's got a little cracked rib. I say day to day, so we'll just wait and see. And he played for about a week with that injury. He's a tough little guy.
Yeah, he got hit when Monday night against Ken Hill in Montreal.
There's a high drive to left. Back goes Klesko at the wall. He's got it. Just missed. When that baby left the bat, I thought we were tied 2-2, but it seemed to just die up there. 2 down.
Watch the swing. Watch the head of the bat, how far it goes. From there, up, and around. He got it out there in time, but was just under the ball a little bit. May have been jammed a little. I've never seen him drop it toward the first base dugout before.
Jeff Conine, the batter. Fastball high and away. 1 ball, no strike.
He got around on one last night.
Well hit left center field. Back goes Kelly. Back goes Kelly. It's off the wall. Bounces over the wall. It'll be a double. And that will save a run for Atlanta. Magadan could have walked home, but the ball bounced over the wall, and the rules state he has to stop at third. What a break.
Great extension on this breaking ball. Went down and got it. I happen to think he's a good low ball hitter. I was talking to Jimmy Williams, third base coach for the Braves, before the ball game about him, and he agrees that he likes the ball down, and he waited for that breaking ball beautifully, and the Braves got a break when it bounced out.
But Avery is really getting tagged here. Greg Colburn, the batter. Ground ball. Great stop. Belliard throw is late. It's 2-1. Colburn drives in his 20th run with an infield hit. And here's Benito Santiago.
Pacoda almost got leather on it. Belliard did, but look how far he had to make the throw. No chance to get Colburn. Good stop by McGriff to keep the runner at third.
Steve is really getting pasted here again. Santiago hitting .272. Jumping on the first pitch and flailing away are the Marlins. 0-1. Santiago took a night off last night. A strength. It's 0-2.
Everybody jumping on the first one. Magadan base hit on the first pitch. Conine, Colburn, Santiago tried.
High and away, 1-2. They're on the corners with 2 out and 1 in. Braves lead 2-1. Curve inside. It's 2-2. Avery comes set. Santiago waits the pitch. Got him, and the inning is over. But not before the Marlins cut the Atlanta lead in half. They score a run on 3 hits and leave 2, and after an inning, your score: Atlanta 2, Florida 1. Rafael Belliard leads off the second inning for Atlanta. Mark Gardner deals, and it's fouled back, 0-1.
Tonight for Rafi.
Oh, do you mean an error or do you mean a home run?
Homer, man.
Probably not. The pitch. Low and inside. I thought you might have been referring to the fact that he's gone 82 games at shortstop without an error, and the record is 88 set by Kevin Oster. The 1-1. Swung a miss. He had a home run on his mind. A ball and 2 strikes.
No, he's got a legitimate shot at that. By the way, Elster just activated, I believe, by the Yankees. He's been battling some arm problems the last couple of years.
Back and arm. The 1-2 to the Atlanta shortstop. Got him. Breaking ball gets Belliard one away. 3 strikeouts for Gardner, and they have been in succession.
Told you about the curveball. And there it is. Well, that thing comes right over the top. He doesn't overthrow it. He just kind of flips it up there, but he's got a good motion on it. Keeps the hitters off balance.
Oh, and 1 to Avery.
Gardner was traded from Montreal to Kansas City in a deal that included Tim Spear, the catcher. Last year with the Royals, 4-6 with a 6.19.
Avery couldn't stop his swing. 1 around. 0-2. Two out. 4 in a row on strikes. Roberto Kelly, the batter, he singled and scored his first time. He gives Avery a little time to get back to the dugout. It's still very hot here. Right in there. It's 0-1 after a shaky start. Gardner has really settled down. Let's hope Avery can do the same. Drilled into center. Carr on the run. Still going. He's got it. Good play. Carr raced to the 434-foot mark to haul in a long blast off the bat of Roberto Kelly. 1, 2, 3, nothing doing. Bottom half of the second inning. Braves 2, Marlins 1. Brett Barbery leads off the second inning. He takes a pitch low from Avery. 1 ball, no strikes. The Rogers family here rooting for the Braves from Peachtree City, Georgia. A little bit outside. Billy Ruth is the man in the Billy the Marlin suit. He wants to be remembered to his grandmother, Zoe Ruth. That ball's well hit. Kelly on the run. Makes it look easy. 1 out. Zoe Ruth watching in Columbia, South Carolina, 101 years old. 1 away.
And there's your grandson. You think 50 years ago she envisioned this?
No, probably not. Kurt Abbott is the batter. Hot shot. Lemke, a good play. What a year he's having. 2 down. But folks, everything's being hit hard here.
You mentioned Belliard's defensive work. 1 error for Mark Lemke since tax day.
The count to Gardner. Headed for right field, base hit. Justice up, took a look at first base, but Gardner hustled down the line, and Avery's problems continue.
Well, I thought batting practice ended right around 6:45, but now even Mark Gardner joining the hit parade, his first hit of the season after going 0 for 11. PA man calls him Chucky. I guess we should do that too, huh? Yeah, well, last night we couldn't remember if we were supposed to call him Chuck or...
It's all so confusing. Foul tip. That one shook up Javi Lopez. 0-1. Chucky flied to center his first time. Curve, little dribbler toward short. It's going to be a tough play. Belliard got him by a half step, and the inning is over. One hit, no runs, no errors, one left at the end of two. It's Braves 2, Marlins 1.
2-1 Braves after 2 innings of play, and a reminder that this telecast is authorized under broadcasting rights granted by the Atlanta National League Baseball Club and is intended solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any publication, rebroadcast, retransmission, or the use of the pictures, descriptions, or accounts of this game without the express written consent of the Atlanta National League Baseball Club is prohibited. And
this is card number 11.
Don't
card
forget,
number 1.
and don't forget, at the conclusion of our game, the Armor All Protected player of the game will be selected.
Mark Lemke will lead off the third inning. Only in television would the 2 cards that are read back-to-back every night be numbered numbers 1 and number 11. A strike to Lemke evens it up. A ball and a strike. Mark singled hard to right his first time. Curveball bounced up there. 2-1. Business is still booming for the Marlins, but their attendance is off some from last year. The newness of it, of course, is no more.
Gardner, when he made that good start against the Expos, had just come off the disabled list. He had a strained right groin.
Another hot shot into right for Lemke. 2 out of 2. And a good start to the third inning for Atlanta. Here's Plesko driven a run with a sacrifice fly first time.
You know, Skip, even his outs are being hit very sharply. He's hitting the ball solidly. Sounds like a firecracker goes off every time he makes contact. Ball coming in on him a little bit. Really using his hands well and hit it sharply. You got to hit it hard to get it by Barbary when it's that close to him.
Curve blowing away. 1 ball, no strikes. Braves lead it 2-1. Didn't mean to. Hit it foul into the dugout. A ball and a strike. Lemke a short lead at first. Oh, he got around a little too quickly. He hit it a mile high and foul out of play.
He's fun to watch.
He really is. He's one of those guys like Darryl Strawberry, where when he stands in, there's just a little murmur goes through the crowd, and everybody focuses. You can even see it when other players stop what they're doing and watch a guy take batting practice. Then you know he's got something special.
Sure does. He had some balls out there in their picnic area tonight in batting practice.
Yeah, one landed in a bowl of Brunswick stew. It was not a pretty sight out there.
No, it went everywhere. There was a waiter that went crying into the restroom. His tie was mussed.
The 2-2 pitch instead to first. Just missed low. That's the other thing about this guy. He's got a good eye up there. He doesn't chase very many bad pitches.
Gardner's trying to be so careful with his curveball, too. He wasted one way outside. That one, he tried to make sure he kept it down. He just doesn't want to leave anything hanging out over the plate for Ryan, who, as Gardner found out the first time around, could hit his curveball a long way. But he got him to hit it to center field.
See how they play it here with a 3-2 count. Running. Missing. Double play. Two-6 after the strikeout.
Fifth strikeout for Gardner. They came down and in on him, almost like a cut fastball. That was not his usual heater, and they got Lemke by a pretty good distance. I don't think Ryan expected Gardner to challenge him down and in, but that's where it was.
Looked like he did chase a bad ball that time. McGriff comes up empty. It's 0-1. Inside, it's even now, a ball and a strike. The 1-1. Curve right in there, 1-2. Two and two. Pirates and Reds scoreless after 2.5 tonight. Cubs failed to score in the first at Houston. That was close.
Gardner had a 28-33 record in the National League prior to his trade to Kansas City in '92 with the Expos. 12-10 in 30 starts. Had an ERA of 4.3 and had 132 strikeouts in 179 innings.
Line to the center field. Now that strikeout double play really hurts. McGriff is 2 out of 2. Here's David Justice, who reached on an error his first time. I bet when they research this whole thing and go through the rules books, they're going to find out they have to give him an RBI or not.
I started to say a minute ago that I know it's up to the scorers, I guess, his decision as far as what he thought was in Coburn's mind. But if there's a runner at second and he makes an error, certainly you don't get an RBI. But the runner at third, I think he has to give him one.
It hit him, and let's see where it got him. If it got him on that bad knee, that's bad news. He's hurt.
Let's take a look. Just above the knee.
Gardner, by the way, has tied a National League record. He once hit 3 batters in an inning. This is his first hit that's of the year. The Braves, by the way, finished June with a 17-10 record, third best in their history. Curve drilled, but foul. He guessed curveball that time and had a good swing, just hit it foul. 2 on, but 2 out. I had a feeling if Howie could just get 1 RBI, there might be a whole bunch to follow. Look out, he almost hit him. A ball and a strike. Same thing. Hit it hard but foul. 1 and 2.
Last year at the end of June, the Braves were 10 games over 500. This year, they are 20 games over 500.
End of June last year, the Braves were 7.5 games out. In a way, that 13-1 start might not have been so good because people thought this club would only lose 5 or 6 games all year. It didn't work like that. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
And again, you have to give a lot of credit to the Expos, who have really applied a lot of pressure.
Foul back. Got him with a curveball. 6 strikeouts. What an odd game for the Marlin pitcher. 2 hits, no runs, no errors, 2 left. We go to the bottom half of the 3rd inning. Braves 2, Marlins 1. Dave Magadan leads off the bottom of the 3rd as darkness falls on Miami. Downstairs, 1 ball, no strikes. Magadan hit a solid single to left his first time. And he hits a solid shot down the right field line. He can run for a while here. He's on his way to second. He's around second. A good play by Justice. He came up with that ball barehanded, or it might have been a triple. So Magadan is 2 out of 2.
Started him inside and then tried to throw a breaking ball that didn't go anywhere. It just stayed right out over the plate. That was like putting it on a tee for Magadan, who's a line drive type hitter.
So the tying run is at second. There's a good play by Justice. Gary Sheffield, the battery, flirted with a home run his first time. Sent Fusco to the left field wall for his drive. High pop. See if it stays in play. Lopez comes back. It's about 4 rows back. 0-1. Avery works quickly, looks in for a sign, has to wait for Sheffield. Jeff Conine waits on deck. Out in front, 0-2.
Good pitch. You saw Sheffield as he was walking to the plate after the foul ball kind of slap himself in the helmet, like he was a little angry with himself for missing the pitch before and perhaps a little over-aggressive there on the changeup.
The 0-2 pitch. Drill, deep right field. Justice going back. He'll have room. Runner tag. Here's the catch. Here comes Magadan. Here comes the throw. He is safe. Strong throw by Justice, but Magadan made it with relative ease. He's at third with 1 out. Jeff Conine, the batter, he ripped a double his first time.
I love to see this because this is David Justice telling the Marlins, I'm not conceding anything to you. I don't care if I am 2 steps from the warning track. I'm going to try to throw the guy out at third base, and made a good effort in the process.
Infield comes in for Atlanta. Conine doubled his first time. Into deep left center and was gypped out of an RBI, to be honest about it. The ball bounced over the fence. Magadan would have scored easily, but the rules forced him to stop at third. Ground ball foul.
Last night we saw in the home run to center field that he really didn't get fully extended on that swing that he hit 450 feet. And I think that's part of the way you have to pitch him. You have to try to prevent him from getting his arms extended. You got to keep the ball in on him before you work him away.
Inside out at that ball, and I'll tell you why. Look where McGriff is playing. He's almost at second base. Anything down the first base line is an easy hit. They expect Conine to pull the ball.
Well, then keep playing him up the middle as well. That ball was in, down and in a little bit, and all he could do was take an inside-out swing at it.
This is one of those spots where you try to get a strikeout. Steve has one tonight.
Going in again.
Broken bat, pop, short left field. Klesko comes on. Here's the catch. Here's the throw. Tie game. Not a good throw at all by Klesko.
No, and it's a tough break for Avery. He made a good pitch, broke his bat, but Conine still strong enough to hit it out there to fairly deep left field. Ball came right in on him, and he just fought it off. Ryan got himself in a pretty good position to throw, but as you can see, well off the mark.
Greg Colburn, the batter. 0-1. 2-2 our score. Braves at one time held a 2-0 lead and had runners at first and third with one out, but could do no more damage. There's a pop down the left side. Klesko coming over. He's there. And the inning is over. But the Marlins tie it. A run on a hit. No errors. Nobody left. We've played 3. Tie it 2-2. Coming up next on TBS, an encore presentation of WCW's Clash of the Champions. Tonight's show features the big match between Sting and Ric Flair. Hulk Hogan also makes his WCW debut tonight.
All right.
After the game on TBS, we go to the 4th inning. Bill Pecota leads it off, takes a strike, 0-1.
Times that come on right after the game?
Right after the game. Sting and Ric Flair. That's 2 different people, right?
Mm-hmm. That'll be a good match.
Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. The 1-1. 2 balls and a strike. I thought Hulk Hogan quit.
He's back.
Yeah.
And he's with the WCW.
Into center. Carr doesn't have to move. 1 up. Rafael Belliard, the batter. Who do you like in that Sting Ric Flair set 2, buddy?
Well, it's an encore presentation. I don't know that I witnessed that one. Could be, but I'm going to take the Nature Boy.
I figured you would. Outside to Belliard.
So I guess you're going to be going with the Stingerooski, huh?
Yeah, I'm stuck with Sting. Lined into center, a solid hit for Belliard. That's a tough break for Rafi there, because if Chuck Carr had fainted, he might have had an inside the park home run. He didn't.
Good swing, though. Fastball right down the middle. Rafi didn't miss it.
See how they play it with Avery up there. You would guess a bunt.
Hulk Hogan came out of retirement. I've been kind of waiting for the return of Angelo Samoli.
I give up. Who is Angelo Samoli?
He was a great wrestler.
Pops the bunt up. Diving catch. 2 out. Boy, that's something the Braves were really good at last year, but not worth a hoot at this year. Moving the runner over.
Let's see what the pitch was. If it's a fastball or a curve. Oh my, fastball right at the letters. But if we could back that up, Killer, Ken Nolan, our producer tonight, watch Steve already leaning toward first. He's already leaving the box. you got to make sure you get the ball down before you start leaving.
Roberto Kelly is the batter. He single scored in the first, line to deep center, where Carr made a good play on him in the second. Steve Rake 0-1. Renner at first, 2 down in the fourth. Moved him off the plate to even it up at a ball and the strike.
Roberto has 23 hits in his last 15 games.
And he has scored 29 runs in his 30 games with the Braves. Belliard safe at first.
I wouldn't look for him to run unless Kelly gets behind in the count.
Line right at the shortstop, inning over. Hit it hard again, but nothing to show for it. 1 hit, no runs, no errors, 1 left. Bottom of the fourth. What's your score? Braves and Marlins tied 2-2. Santiago will lead off the bottom of the fourth in a 2-2 ball game. Joe Simpson, Skip Carey with you from Joe Robbie Stadium. Well, they've done a great job here fixing this place up for baseball. The wind and the pitch. Line down the left field line. Another first pitch hit. Santiago at second with a double, and that's the go-ahead run.
Steve's trying to get ahead with first pitch strikes, but I think to start the inning he's going to have to maybe try something different. Whoa, that was a good breaking ball, though. Give Santiago some credit there. That was just a get-over curve ball, and Santiago one-handed it. Not much Steve could do about that.
Bill Pecota not sure what's on Barbery's mind here. He is gonna bunt down the third base line. Avery has one play. Better hurry. Bad throw. He's safe. See how they score it. It's got to be a sacrifice.
I say base hit. Tough play. Bunted it in a great spot down the third base line. Good throw might have had him, but still close play all the way.
Kurt Abbott is the batter. They scored a sacrifice in an E1.
Another first pitch threat.
High drive center field. Kelly turns tail on the run near the wall. He's got it, and a run scored. And the Braves are lucky that's all that happens. It's 3-2.
You were talking about this ballpark before the fireworks started this inning, Skip. It's fun to watch a game here. You know,
really
there's a lot of fun stuff that can happen in the corners and in the center field corner out there 434 away.
Gardner bunts fouled on the first base line.
Anything could happen when we hit a ball off the scoreboard out in left.
When I was doing the NFL football, did a game down here, and they were taking me around and showing me how it was going to be for baseball, and I nodded politely and thought to myself, that ain't going to work. But I was wrong. It's terrific. The field's in great shape. I think that scoreboard out there is a lot of fun.
I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it other than kind of a National League version of the Green Monster in a way. It just adds a new dimension.
I forget who the player was. Remember the old Shive Park in Philadelphia? Isn't that the name of it?
Yeah, Connie Mack Stadium.
Yeah, they had a short porch in right field years ago. Sunday doubleheader after a very late, I forget who the right fielder was, but after a very late Saturday night. First game was like 12 to 10 in 100-degree weather. Runner goes. They play hit and run. Swung and missed. The throw is high, and he's safe. Don't blame Lopez on that either. A perfect throw would not have had him. Very aggressive baseball. Barbery's second stolen base of the year in as many tries.
Hit and run all the way. Rene Latchman changes it up a bit. But because they weren't holding Barbery close, he steals it easily.
Anyway, the second game was like 9 to 7-2, another 3-hour job, and the right fielder had been out virtually all night. Hit him in the batter's box. Count stays the same. And we're about the 6th pitching change of the second game. The right fielder just leaned back against the right field wall, closed his eyes in exhaustion, and the pitcher was so angry that instead of giving the ball to the manager, he just whirled and fired it off the wall in right field. And the guy woke up, grabbed it, and threw a strike for second. Thought he'd fallen asleep and missed a base hit. I can understand the feeling. Aber looks in. A ball and 2 strikes. It's 3-2 Marlins. The Braves scored 2 in the first. Gardner now steps out as Aber takes a lot of time. And the crowd stirs restlessly. Swung late and struck out. Avery's second strikeout. Here's Chuck Carr 0 for 2. So far, Carr's been idling tonight. A fly to center, a grounder to short.
Braves pitchers have begun to show a little chink in their defensive armor. 5 errors in the past month, after only 1 combined through the end of May.
1 ball, no strikes.
And it's a good fielding group as a whole.
Ground ball up the middle. Belliard fields and throws, and the inning is over. But the Marlins break on top. They get a run on 1 hit. There was an error. The run is earned, however. And a runner was left at the end of 4 complete. It's 3-2 Florida.
We go to the top of the 5th inning. Check out some other scores around baseball. No score at Pittsburgh after 3. Sammy Sosa is homered for the Cubs. No other games in the National League yet underway. Some other American League scores as we go along here in the 5th.
Mark Lemke's 2 for 2. Mark Lemke is 2 for 3. If Gardner covers, he does. 1 down.
Playing a doubleheader at Texas, as we told you, and there are already balls flying all over the place. Gibson a homer for Detroit. Canseco his 23rd for the Rangers. Oakland got 5 in the first against Boston. Seattle and New York tied. Cleveland with a 2-1 lead over Minnesota. Eddie Murray with his 12th homer. Rafael Palmeiro has hit his 14th for Baltimore. Salmon and Curtis have homered for the Angels. Chicago an early lead. Toronto got 3 top of the first at Kansas City.
Ryan Klesko, the batter. Downstairs, 1 ball, no strikes. Klesko drove in a run with a sacrifice fly on the first, struck out into a double play in the 3rd. Gardner deals. Let up, a good one. Saw that movie, Little Big Leaguer, today.
Thumbs up?
For kids, yeah. 2 balls and a strike. Ken Griffey Jr.'s got a part in there. Does a good job playing himself. Leon Durham's in it. Lou Piniella. Strike call.
Good changeup.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Fred McGriff waits on deck. Got him. Foul tipped into a strikeout. Second time tonight. Klesko has been out on strikes, and that's 7 of them in the game for Gardner.
Good fastball. Talked about how the Expos were surprised when he came back to town and beat them in his last start. They expected a good curveball. What they didn't expect was his fastball that seemed to be overpowering at times, but his curveball will make it look that way.
Curve is in there. He's got a good off-speed pitch going.
Whatever his problem was last year with Kansas City, if he had some trouble throwing strikes or whatever it was, he seems to have regained his confidence in his breaking ball, because he is pitching very well right now.
Missed inside with that one. People say that's a curveball league and this is a fastball league. I don't think that's true, do you?
No, I think that I don't agree with that, but I do think that in the American League, when pitchers are behind in the count, they do tend to throw a few more off-speed pitches.
Off his foot.
But only then. I think National League has a rule. Pitcher gets behind 2-1, 3-1, they throw fastballs.
I'm just trying to figure out why he would have had such difficulty over there. Probably because he didn't pitch very well. Curve hit high and deep to left field. That ball's got a chance. That ball is long gone over the highest part of the scoreboard. Tie game, number 20 for McGriff. 54th RBI. Look at this. There it is. Whoop. There it is. He is 3 out of 3.
When you hit that ball, Skip, it looked like a routine fly ball, but then it got to a certain point and seemed to have retro rockets on it. High curveball and a high finish. Hands stayed back on the curve, and that's basically all he used on it, were his hands and arms, and over the clock.
He smoked that baby. Off-speed pitch, strike to Justice, 0-1.
10th homer allowed by Gardner.
Two. Justice has reached on an error and been hit by a pitch. And got gypped out of an RBI by the scorer. I got a feeling the scorer is probably packing and planning a move to Atlanta. Base hit, center field. Here's Javi Lopez, who has been called out on strikes and who has gone down swinging. Frank Rehberger, the pitching coach, to the mound.
Frank's a good man. He's going to do a good job as the newly appointed pitching coach for the Marlins after Marcel Latchman took the managerial post over in California. Frank, a former big leaguer with the Giants. For Fred McGriff, his 20th homer, and that marks the 8th straight season in which he has hit 20 or more.
You know, he is very quietly, and that's the only way he does anything. He's very quietly heading toward the Hall of Fame. I'm dead serious. He just keeps big year after big year. No self-promotion involved with him like some guys.
2 more homers from McGriff will give him 250 in his career. Lazy fly into short center. Carr comes on, and the inning is over. But the Braves tied on the McGriff homer. 1 of 2 hits in the inning. They leave 1. At the end of 4 1/2, we're tied 3-3.
Bottom of the 5th inning, tied at 3. Pete Van Weer and Don Sutton with you for the rest of this one. And A little bit of a shaky start for Gardner, but he's come on strong, and this is not the crisp Avery we've seen many times this year.
No, he's not getting many swinging strikes or even many called strikes. When he throws a pitch over the plate and they're swinging and normally making contact.
Magadan has had success against Avery tonight. He's 2 for 2. He has scored a couple of the runs. He may be 3 for 3. Diving play, Lemke, and he takes a base hit away from Magadan. Good play by Mark Lemke. Lemke covered a lot of real estate to get to that one.
It's one of the best plays Mark has made all year, and he's made a lot of good ones. That ball is behind him when he runs it down, and he gets to his feet so quickly. That was the key here. If he doesn't get to his feet, get that throw away that quickly, he would never have gotten Magadan. But watch how quickly, after making the catch, he slides right back to his feet, turns, and throws. Good play.
One gone for Sheffield. Sheffield hasn't had a whole lot of good swings the last couple of days. He takes a strike right there, and it's 0-1. Avery's changeup bounces up there. That'll make it 1-1. Three runs and 8 hits for the Braves. 3 runs, 6 hits for the Marlins. An error for each team. Change up wide, and it's 2-1. One of the really good guys in broadcasting here today, doing a weekly TV show for the Sunshine Network, Lou Palmer. Good to see him. Off the fist, back our way, and it's 2-2. He was hosting the show today, Pete, for the Sunshine Network. They do a 30-minute weekly show. His guest was Ryan Klesko, and I think he got a little more than he bargained for. Curveball hit in the air. Middle of the infield. Who wants it? McGriff takes charge. 2 gone. Klesko was being interviewed, and right in the middle of the interview, as they're kind of growing crisply through it, I think he got the old pie in the face treatment. 2 gone for Jeff Conine. 1 for 1, a double, a sac fly. Ball 1 is outside. Change up is upstairs. That'll make it 2-0.
Already matched his home run total of a year ago and about half as many at-bats.
Did you get the feeling, though, the first couple of times you saw him, it was just a matter of time till numbers like that started popping up? Whistles this one right at Belliard. A good inning for Steve Avery, the first 1-2-3 inning of the night. The Marlins go quietly in the 5th. We have wrapped up 5 here at Joe Robbie Stadium. We're still tied at 3 apiece.
Trivia question, here it is. Who holds the Atlanta record for the longest hitting streak? And we'll have the answer for you in the next half inning.
Bill Pacota's going to lead it off. Belliard and Avery to follow. 3-3 the score. Top of the 6th inning. On a pleasant evening here at Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami. Wasn't so all day. There was some heavy artillery and some rain all throughout the southeastern part of Florida today. We're being held up a little bit while one of the Marlins promos makes its way out of the arena. Pacota 0 for 2. Hits this one foul. No balls and 1 strike. Bill has struck out and he's flied to center field, but he's really taken advantage of getting the play, hasn't he, Pete?
Yes, he has. He already has more at-bats this year than he had all of last year, and just seems to be getting more and more comfortable, offensively and defensively.
Good breaking ball from Gardner, and Pacota's in a hole 0-2.
We solved a mystery earlier tonight about Tony Tarasco.
Off the fist, out of play, 0-2. Yeah, you had him on the pregame show.
Finally got an answer to the question why Tony Tarasco, regardless of how warm it is, always wears that parka.
And it's not because he has a clothing contract.
No, it's not. Had kind of an interesting answer.
The 0-2 up under the chin, 1-2.
Said he's used to being an everyday player, and he finds that when he has to sit on the bench for a long period of time and then all of a sudden get into a game, he has a hard time getting loose.
The 1-2 comebacker. Tough play for Abbott, but he makes it. 1 out.
And Tony said by wearing that parka, he said, I'm always breaking a sweat. He said it takes me much less time to stretch and loosen up and get into a ball game when I'm called on.
So he's not a guy who can just bounce out, take a few stretches, and be ready to go?
Not yet. Not at this stage of his career. That'll eventually come, I would imagine.
1 out for Belliard. He's 1 out of 2, and somewhat of a milestone for Rafael Belliard today,
In batting practice.
which Pete will tell you about right after this pitch. Upstairs, 1-0.
Rafael Belliard hit 1 out in batting practice today.
It was right at the end of BP, and I have a feeling had it not been the last swing, he might have run the bases. On the ground, another chance for Abbott. High, but did he stay on? A little bit of fancy footwork by Greg Colburn. 2 outs here in the 6th.
Abbott sort of sidearms this throw. And every once in a while on a sidearm throw, you'll see a ball sail like that. Good job of holding the bag by Greg Colburn, who has not been playing first base that long.
Good shot right there. Here's Avery with 2 gone. Struck out looking. Hop back to the pitcher trying to bunt back in the 4th inning. He gets the curveball for a strike, and it's 0-1. By the way, we were telling you earlier about the pie-in-the-face treatment for Klesko. We're going to show that to you a little later. I didn't know we had it. On the ground. This time it's the 3rd baseman, Magadan. He makes it look easy. Matter of fact, Gardner makes it look easy. 3 ground ball outs, a 1-2-3 inning. Braves go quietly in the 6th. We move to the bottom of the 6th. The numbers are the same, 3 apiece.
You heard us mention Ryan Klesko being the victim of a prank while appearing on a Florida Marlins television show. Here's what it looked and sounded like.
And everybody's pitching great, and you know, we of course we have our little streaks here and there, but people. Aha!
They got him good.
Well, it happens, folks.
Now let's answer tonight's Aflac trivia question. Who holds the Atlanta record for the longest hitting streak? And the answer is the big boy, Rico Carty, 31-game streak back in 1970.
I might say I helped him in that, too. Bottom of the 6th inning. Colburn, Santiago, and Barbary to lead it off. The first one is a strike. Colburn 1 out of 2, single, and has flied to left field. Off the fist, chance for Pacoda. Long throw, but he gets it. That makes it 7 in a row set down by Steve Avery.
Don, we also want to congratulate Mike and Susan Bilecki on the birth today of their 2nd daughter, Ashley Marie Bilecki, born at 9:24 a.m. Weighed in at 6 pounds 3 ounces.
Mom and daughter doing well, and I think
Mike is already back
Mike
in uniform.
Is back here, yes. 1 out for Benito Santiago. Takes the first one for a strike. And I want to join all her family and friends from up in Northwest Florida and wish a very happy birthday to Nancy Haney up in Wolf Laurel, North Carolina. She is celebrating birthday number 29 again this year. 1-1 to count to Santiago. Make it 2-1 on the changeup.
Yorkie Perez in the Marlins bullpen.
He was just activated yesterday, I think.
They've had a lot of injuries to their pitching staff this year. Right now, they have 6 pitchers on the disabled list.
Slow roller to Lemke. Good play by Mark. 2 gone. That'll bring up Brett Barbary. Also want to say hello to Mary and Bill and Sean and little Billy. The Trenfells listening in out in Hamul, California. Big Braves fan. Didn't mean to. Tough play for Avery. Can he make it? Yes, he does. What a nice inning for Avery. The Marlins go quietly in the 6th. That is 8 in a row set down by Steve Avery. We put 6 in the books from Joe Robbie Stadium. Braves 3, the Marlins 3.
First inning, fly to center in the second, line to short in the fourth. And he takes ball one from Gardner. 1-0 pitch. That evens the count. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Kelly's had some good swings against Gardner tonight. Got the base hit the ball well to center, lined it to short.
That caught the corner, and it's 1-2 now on Roberto Kelly.
That's pretty good production. That's exactly why the Braves made the trade.
Inside, ball 2, 2-2. In the air down the right field line. This one is going to be a foul ball, though, up into the seats. It remains 2 balls, 2 strikes on Kelly.
Pete, when you look down the right field line and you see the pole just kind of standing out there, you can see why the call down the right field line on a controversial or a close home run.
Down the left field line this time, and this one is going to stay fair and bounce over the wall. Ground rule double to start the 7th for Roberto Kelly. Another 2-hit game for Kelly. That's his 19th double of the year.
He was out in front of this one. Dropped his hands in, pulled them in close, watch the ball bounce. See how it goes in there? There is so much clutter down that left field line. You got the backdrop, you got trees up above, you got shadows in there. It is a much more difficult call if it's close to being foul down there than it would be down the right field line. So you can see how plays like last night could take place in that corner.
Now Mark Lemke, who has 2 singles and a ground out, and we'll see what they have him doing here. He is squaring, tries to bunt it, and fouls it off. The count 0-1. And hit by Kelly, the 9th Atlanta hit off Gardner.
A guy like Mark here, obviously the textbook play is to push the ball to third base. But with a good base runner like Kelly out there, he's better off doing what would be easier for him, and that is to drag the ball to first. Anything on the ground toward the first base side is going to get Kelly over.
And he pops the bunt foul. It's going to be caught by Santiago. A couple of times tonight, the Braves have failed to get a bunt down off Gardner. Avery had the same thing happen to him, except it was caught by the pitcher in fair territory back in the 4th inning.
Watch the angle of the bat, Pete. He never gets it level, never gets it square, jabs at the ball. You're taught when you bunt to go out with the front and let the ball hit the bat and just bring it back to you.
Sort of deaden the bat.
That's the whole idea, not to push out and jab it. That may be the end of the night for Mark Gardner.
Well, he's had the left-hander Yorkie Perez throwing in the bullpen to get him ready for these Braves left-hand hitters, Ryan Klesko, Fred McGriff, and David Justice. Gardner leads after working 6 1/3. He's allowed 9 hits, 3 runs to this point. The runner at second belongs to him. 7 strikeouts tonight for Mark Gardner. And he did not walk a batter, so a good outing for the right-hander. Yorkie Perez will be the new pitcher. Still tied at 3, and one of the things that Rene Lachemann did by getting the left-hander Yorkie Perez into the game is get Klesko out of the game. Dave Gallagher will pinch hit for him.
There's what he's done late in the ballgame, Pete, but this move is no surprise. We've seen Bobby Cox make it all year long. Most of those home runs coming off right-handers. I would venture to say they're probably all coming off right-handers from the 7th inning on, but we will not get to see that improved or lessened tonight.
Gallagher 216 for the year. A couple of home runs, 12 RBIs. He's 4 out of 19 as a pinch hitter. Perez just activated yesterday. He's one of the many Marlin pitchers that has been on the DL this year. His 27th appearance. Rolled toward short by Gallagher. Abbott fields the throw on to first in time. Moving over to third is Roberto Kelly. And that'll bring up Fred McGriff, who's had a perfect night. 3 for 3, 2 singles, and a long home run over the scoreboard in left center field.
This is a move I don't mind that they make with Fred McGriff up there, because I really don't think Yorkie Perez has a pitch. He might get McGriff out, but I don't think he has a pitch that is going to intimidate Fred McGriff. McGriff will just shoot the ball toward left field if the left-hander throws him anything out away from him.
Called strike in the outside corner, 0-1. Perez was in the Braves organization briefly back in 1991. He pitched at Richmond. And then he and Turk Wendell went to the Chicago Cubs in the trade that brought Damon Berryhill and Mike Bielecki.
Got to look at the defense there. Does that surprise you?
They've been playing McGriff as a dead pull hitter this entire series, and I don't know of any other team that does that. Because McGriff gets a lot of hits to left and left center field, but the outfield swung way around, the infield swung way around.
Including the home run tonight to left field.
1 ball, 1 strike, and McGriff 2 men out with a runner at third. Here's the 1-1, 2-1. Perez, 26 years old, from the Dominican Republic. He was only 15 when he signed his first professional contract. Taken low in the count, 3-1.
Watch how long McGriff waits. Well, there's one of the reasons. Look what he's done against lefty. Watch how long he waits against a left-hander. He doesn't get in any hurry. He doesn't overcommit. What you see a lot of left-handed hitters do against left-handed pitchers is because they are intimidated by the fastball inside. They kind of commit early. They fly open. McGriff may close up more on a lefty than he does on a righty. That's what allows him to wait longer on the breaking ball. And I guarantee you, against a left-handed pitcher, Fred McGriff, in his mind, hits off the breaking ball.
Now the 3-1 pitch on the way to McGriff, hit sharply on one hop to the second baseman Marbury. And a good job of pitching by Yorkie Perez to get the final 2 outs in the top half of the 7th. The Braves stranding a runner at third. We go to the 7th inning stretch here at Joe Robbie Stadium, still tied at 3.
Bottom of the 7th, 3-3 the score. 2 more against the Marlins after tonight. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, we'll have it right here for you on TBS. Good pitching matchup. Pete will tell you about that in a little bit. And then on Sunday, the final game of the series, a 6 o'clock ball game. Our sister station, Sports South, will have it for you. Braves and the Marlins all weekend.
Dave Gallagher stays in the game in left field as we go to the bottom half of inning 7, still tied. Kurt Abbott leads off against Steve Avery and takes ball 1. Abbott tonight has grounded out to second and had a sacrifice fly to center. Two 2-0, the count on Abbott. Mario Diaz in the on-deck circle. He will bat for Perez. On the ground to third, Bill Pecota fields and throws 1 down. It's 10 straight retired now by Avery, and now Mario Diaz pinch hitting. It's Rob Nin out in the bullpen for the Marlins. Diaz hitting .435 since being reacquired by the Marlins. 10 for 23 with 4 RBIs. Taking outside, ball 1. In for a strike, 1 ball, 1 strike. A little low in the count, 2-1.
Good outing for Avery tonight because he's been able to avoid that one big inning that's plagued him for about 6 starts, Pete.
This will be out of play down the right side. And the count 2-2. And it's been fairly evident that Avery has not had his best stuff tonight because there have been some pretty well hit balls, especially early in the game often. So that shows a little maturity for a young pitcher to be able to not quite have your #1 fastball, #1 curve, and #1 changeup working and still be pitching into the 7th inning with a chance to win. Strike 3 called. Only the 3rd strikeout of the game for Avery, who's now retired 11 straight.
3rd strikeout, first call strike. Javi Lopez wants it over the outside corner. Javi does a good job there of drawing that ball back toward the strike zone. If he reaches out and kind of pushes that away or snatches at it, he doesn't get the call.
Two men out. Back to the top of the order now, and Chuck Carr is fly to center and twice grounded out to short. Out of play. 0-1 the count on Carr.
And what Avery's done so well since the third inning, Pete, is have their timing off. We haven't seen guys take real aggressive cuts and be right on the ball since the third inning.
Here's the 0-1. Almost hit him. 1 ball, 1 strike. This is something Steve Avery hardly ever used to do early in his career, but we've seen him do it quite a bit this year.
Down and in, Carr was committed to going out there and getting something off speed. That's why he moved so late. Watch how close this is. Just a little extra exercise.
1 ball, 1 strike on Carr.
Now's a good time to follow it with a changeup, because you know every hitter wants to just nail one here.
In the air to right field, fairly deep. Justice going back, slows down now and has it on the edge of the warning track. Another 1-2-3 inning for Steve Avery. He is now retired 12 in a row. We go to the 8th inning, still tied 3-3.
Time for us to take a look at our Delta scoreboard. John Roper doing a good job for Cincinnati. Shutout pitching coming from Traxel in Houston. Colorado gave up 5 to St. Louis in the first. Whitman Jeffries homered. Later on, New York at San Diego, Montreal at San Francisco, Philly at Los Angeles. In the American League, Gibson a homer for Detroit, Canseco a homer for Texas. Game 2 to follow. Another good ball game for the Oakland A's. Randy Johnson for Seattle, 11 strikeouts after 6 innings. Cleveland getting good pitching out of Jack Morris. Minnesota getting good pitching out of Erickson. Morris has now been taken out of that one. And they're playing home run derby in Baltimore. California has homers from Salmon, Curtis, and Davis. Palmeiro, Gomez, and Hammonds have all homered for Baltimore. Johnny Oates has been kicked out of that one. Scanlon against McDowell, the matchup at the game in Chicago. Toronto against Kansas City. Stottlemyre against Apier. If you want to get all the scores and highlights, be sure to tune to CNN Sports Tonight at 11 o'clock Eastern, where Nick Charles and Fred Hickman will update you on all the sports.
And as we go to the 8th inning, the new pitcher for the Marlins, right-hander Rob Nen, making his 29th appearance. 2-4, 7 saves, ERA right at 3. And averaging a strikeout per inning. 39 innings, 39 strikeouts. League hitting .241 against Rob Nen. David Justice leads off here in the 8th. Grounds 1 foul down past Pat Corrales. Rob Nen, 24 years old, the son of Dick Nen, former Major League first baseman with the Dodgers, Washington Senators. Out of play in the count 0-2. Steve Bedrosian up now in the Atlanta bullpen. We are tied at 3 here in the 8th inning. On the ground sharply, good play by Colburn. It ran up his arm a little bit, but he was able to hang on to it and run to the bag in time. 1 gone.
Good thing Colburn came up alertly and looked at the bag and took off himself, because Nen was a little bit late getting over there. That would have been close if he'd had to toss to his pitcher.
Now Javi Lopez, 2 strikeouts and a fly to center, 0 for 3 on the night. In the air to right field. Sheffield circles under it and puts it away. 2 down. That'll bring up Bill Pecota. Got a note from Pete Manzano, who does the Spanish play-by-play for the Brave Spanish Network. Wants to congratulate Jonathan Otto Beasley and his new wife Kathy on their wedding. Jonathan Beasley, a veteran of the Persian Gulf War, an F-16 fighter pilot. So congratulations to the Beasleys. Here's Bill Picotto for 3. He struck out, fly to center, and grounded out to short. At the knees, 0-1.
Is Nen one of 2 palindromes in the American in baseball right now? Toby Harrah is coaching.
Right. 0-2. It seems to me there's another one, but there haven't been many in the history of the game. Eddie Kazak was one. Picotto, did he go? He did. And that's a strikeout for Rob Nen in the 1-2-3 inning. We go to the bottom half of the 8th inning, still tied 3-3. Still tied at 3 as we go to the top half of the 8th inning. Dave Magadan to lead it off against Steve Avery. Magadan tonight has single, doubled, and grounded out the second. That double only his 5th extra base hit of the year.
Magadan taking swings against Avery, with the exception of the ball down the right field line, much like we see McGriff take against other left-handers in the league.
Ball 1 low to Dave Magadan. Avery with a string of 12 consecutive outs. There's his strike, 1-1.
It's a hot, muggy night here, but he hasn't lost any of the zip off his fastball from the first inning.
He's only thrown 78 pitches.
That's a good reason.
And his control has been impeccable. 1 ball, 2 strikes. No walks, 3 strikeouts.
Very seldom do you see 2 starting pitchers get you to the 7th inning, neither one having issued a free ticket.
The 1-2 to Magadan, grounded right at Lemke. 1 gone, 13 in a row, retired.
A little bit of an exciting moment here, but Limmer stays right with it, crawls up his chest. He didn't waste any time, and he gets into throwing position so quickly. A lot of guys would have to wind up, but if you notice, when Mark picked that ball up, the right hand was already coming back as the left foot was striding toward the bag.
Now Gary Sheffield 0 for 3. He's flied to left, flied to right, and popped out to first. He is now 0 for 8 in this series. 1 ball, no strikes, the count.
He has been put on a change-up diet, too, by the Braves pitching staff.
Out of play, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Sorry to interrupt your nap.
Deep to left field, fair or foul. This one is foul. And it's 1-2 on Sheffield.
Well, he's been making good pitches on the changeup down and away, but got one a little bit up in the strike zone. Good thing it was a little bit inside. Watch this swing. Right on it. He knows it's going to hook foul. They're in position to make the call if the help is needed.
Here's the 1-2, foul back into the crowd. A ball and 2 strikes on Sheffield. Now the 1-2 on the way. He got under this one. And Gallagher will have a play in shallow left field. 2 men out. And 14 straight retired now by Avery, and that'll bring up the left fielder, Jeff Conine. A double in the first inning. He also has a sac fly to left and a line out to short. This one out of play, and the count 0-1 on Conine. Conine's going to be hard to ignore in that National League All-Star team. 59 RBIs now. We mentioned last night he's had a very crowded position. There are a lot of first basemen in the National League having good years. But he also is an outfielder. And there's another base hit for him into center. That's the first Florida hit since back in the 4th.
Kind of hard to figure out how to pitch to Conine. Every time the Braves have tried to come in on him, he's been quick enough to get the head of the bat out front, either get a base hit or to hit it hard.
2 men out, a runner at first for Greg Colburn, who's 1 for 3, and an infield single driving in a run back in the 1st. Since then, he's flying to left and grounded out to 3rd. And he takes a strike inside corner at the knees, 0-1. Colburn now with 19 RBIs in his last 16 games. Off the fist's foul, and quickly it's 0-2 on Colburn. If you can hit, they'll find a place for you to play. Colburn was an up-and-coming catcher in the Montreal Expos organization. He tore his rotator cuff in his shoulder. Surgery didn't help much. Now he's a first baseman. Here's the 0-2. Just missed outside. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Two men out. Conine at first, tied at 3 in the bottom half of the 8th. That's out of play. And the count 1-2. The Marlins have played very well in games like this. Close games. They're 17-10 in one-run games.
What's impressive about that is how much time they spent without Brian Harvey this year, too.
Good breaking ball by Avery, and down on strikes is Colburn. 4th strikeout of the game for Steve Avery. And that's all for the Marlins in the 8th. They leave a runner at first. We go to the 9th inning. Still tied 3-3.
And again, not just on the field, but after such a great response from last year's sale. You can get information by calling 614-1913 in the Atlanta area. Skip has his Vienna bread in it. Pete has Kitty's cookies, broiled marinated flank steak, Mom's orange cake from Joe, and Mary's turkey chili. By the way, little-known part of the agreement negotiated by Jimmy Carter with North Korea is that nuclear testing has been banned, and so has Joe Simpson's backdoor chili from last year's book.
Here's Rafael Belliard, 1 for 3 on the night, and a single back in the 4th inning. As we go to the 9th, and Belliard takes strike 1 from Rob Nen. On the ground to 3rd, fielded by Magadan. 1 gone in the 9th. And now Tony Tarasco will come on to pinch hit for Steve Avery. Tarasco on the year hitting .277. He has 5 homers and 14 runs driven in. He's 7 for 30 as a pinch hitter. Told me before the game he's still learning about pinch hitting. It's very difficult when you've been an everyday player throughout your career, as Tarasco has been in the minor leagues, to come to the major leagues and take on this role that he's taken on this year, that of being a backup outfielder and the most often used pinch hitter on the ball club.
I think one of the best things he does is he comes off the bench looking for something to hit on the first pitch. How many times do you see a pinch hitter come up there and take a strike, But Tarasco, if it's in the hitting area, he'll hack at that first one.
0-1 the count. One ball, one strike.
You know who has a good philosophy about pinch hitting is Bill Pecota. Of course, he has a lot of good baseball philosophies anyway. He knows a lot about the game. His idea is to look for something down that you can handle and jump on the first one if it's there.
Here's the 1-1. Upstairs, ball 2, 2-1. And I would imagine a guy like Pecota helps Tarasco in the philosophy of being a pinch hitter.
They spend a lot of time together on the bench. Tony was telling me about that, and he said some of it is productive and some of it is the rookie agitation that you normally get.
3-1 the count now on Tarasco. Roberto Kelly on deck. It's full now, 3-2. We are tied at 3 in the top half of the 9th inning. And the 3-2 pitch to Tarasco struck him out with a high fastball. Second strikeout for Rob Nen, who's now retired 5 in a row.
Tarasco was trying to put the Braves on top with one swing. That's the only reason you will see a hitter as disciplined as Tony Tarasco chase something up about shoulder high.
2 gone. Back to the top of the order now. Roberto Kelly. He's 2 for 4. Is singled and doubled. Fly to center and line to short. Nen with an explosive fastball.
And one of those that looks like at the top of the strike zone has more life and more velocity than it does down low in the strike zone.
Ahead in the count, 0-1. Ahead in the count, 0-2. Upstairs, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
One of the best on the club, since being a Brave, absolutely the best on the club. One of the reasons you can do stuff like that is you have to be able to hit with 2 strikes. Roberto Kelly hitting over 300 when you get 2 strikes on him.
And that's the case now. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Now it's 2-2. Kelly hitting a little bit above 340 since coming over to Atlanta. Here's the 2-2, and it missed just outside. So the count is full now, 3-2 on Kelly.
That is a tough pitch to lay off of, but it's the right call. Watch Santiago try to give it a little help with that last little movement. But Brian Gorman right there in position to see that one and make the call.
Here's the 3-2 to Kelly. Line drive right center field. Carr on the run. He can't get to it. All the way to the wall. Kelly heads for second. Carr bobbles the ball out there. Kelly will go into third base, sliding safely with a triple. His 3rd triple of the year. And the Braves had a potential winning run at third with 2 outs.
Then got this fastball down just a little lower than he wanted. That was just above the belt. Kelly didn't try to pull it, hit it in a perfect spot. He had triple on his mind from the time he hit first base. The relay here is a good one, but Kelly in easily with a triple. Good piece of hitting by Roberto Kelly.
Now Mark Lemke, 2 for 4, runner at third, 2 down. tight. 1 ball, no strikes.
Nin, a pitcher that throws pretty upright, Pete. A little bit of a stiff front leg. That's one of the reasons you'll see more of his fastballs up in the strike zone than you will down.
Here's the 1-0. Ground ball to first, fielded by Colburn. He'll take it himself. And the Braves strand a man at third in the 9th inning. We go to the bottom half of inning 9. Still tied 3-3. We go to the bottom half of the 9th inning, tied 3-3. Steve Bedrosian takes over for Atlanta, making his 29th appearance of the season, trying to rebound from that performance he had against the Expos on Tuesday night when he suffered that only loss. Familiar territory for Steve Avery. 8 innings, no decision. 7 hits, 3 runs, all earned, no walks. First time he's had a start with no walks since April 13th when he struck out 4. Benito Santiago leads off here the night. He had a double back in the 4th inning. He's 1 for 3. In for a called strike, 0-1. Greg Olson, the right-hander, Mike Stanton, the lefty, in the Atlanta bullpen. 0-2 now on Santiago. He was very late on that swing.
He had to be guessing something because that was a slider that was up. Bedrosian throws a hard slider, but you're right, he was really tardy.
Here's the 0-2. Into left field, base hit. On an 0-2 pitch. And now it's the Marlins who have a potential winning run aboard.
I don't think he would take a swing to set Bedrosian up to throw a slider, but after missing one that badly, he might have looked for it, and he got it in the strike zone.
That'll bring up Brett Barbary in a bunt situation. He had a sacrifice back in the 4th, reaching when Steve Avery's throw pulled McGriff off the bag. Avery was charged with an error. Another bunt situation here. And he gets the bunt down. It's a good one. Bedrosian fields, going to second, and safe at second is Santiago.
A risky play right here. Santiago's a good base runner. He can take off right now. That ball's on the ground. Bedrosian had to cover a little real estate and make a perfect throw to get Santiago. That would have been close if it were right at the bag. Watch the jump. Here he goes. It's down. He's on the move. Belliard did a good job of keeping this from going into the outfield. Santiago would have been at third.
That'll probably go as a sacrifice hit, fielder's choice. That is the official ruling by the official score. And now Kurt Abbott. First and second, nobody out. Abbott 0 for 2 with a sac fly tonight. And he, too, is in a bunt situation here. McGriff charging from first, Pecota from third. The butt of beauty down the third base line. Bill Pecota's throw to first. Close. Just got him. Santiago moves to third. Barbary moves to second.
Boy, if you're taping to show kids how to do something, if you're taping, this is textbook. Look at the bat. See the bat bounce back. He deadened it. He had the barrel pointed toward the mound. That was a perfect bunt, and he almost got himself a base hit out of it. Take a look from this angle. The angle of the bat, the bunt, that's absolutely textbook.
Very close at first base. And now we're waiting to see who Rene Latchman will call on here in the pitcher's spot with runners at second and third. The outfield's going to have to come in and play very shallow because a deep fly ball wins the game anyway. And here comes Matias Carrillo out of the Marlins dugout.
Jerry Brown was out there, and he might have been thinking using him, but I think the question Rene Latchman had to ask himself right here is, what pinch hitter do I want to lose?
Because we're probably going to see an intentional walk here.
That's exactly right, and he figured he would rather lose Carrillo than he would Jerry Brown.
The infield in, the outfield in. And they aren't going to intentionally pass Carrillo. He's hitting .283, no homers, 6 RBIs. Nothing in 1 the count on Carrillo. Bedrosian needs a strikeout here. Here's the 0-1. Little pop to shallow left field. Gallagher coming in and in foul territory makes the catch. It's not deep enough to score the run. So now Bedrosian with a chance to get out of the inning. 2 outs, runners second and third. And the batter will be Chuck Carr.
Now Bobby Cox has a choice to make. Does he want to walk Carr intentionally and bring in Stanton to face Magadan?
With 2 outs now, the outfield can play normal depth. Carr tonight is 0 for 4. He's flat out twice and grounded out twice. Dakota will play a step in the grass at third. McGriff even with the bag at first. With his great speed, Carr always a threat to bunt, even in this situation. Tie game, second and third, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. A little low, ball 1.
This is a tough guy to face in this kind of situation because you can make a good pitch on him, and you see what he's doing with 2 out men in scoring position. You can make a good pitch. You can have him hit one off the end of the bat. You can have an infielder have to take 2 or 3 steps one way or the other. Because he is so fast and because he's 2 steps closer from the left-handed batter's box, you might not get him out on a perfect pitch.
He was trying to bunt, missed it. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Don't be surprised if he tries this again to see McGriff charge and see Lemke go straight to the bag. That's about the only shot you have of getting a guy like this out if he gets a good bunt between Fred McGriff and between Steve Bedrosian.
1 ball, 1 strike. Here comes the 1-1 on a play. 1 and 2. Here's the 1-2. Grounded foul. Still a ball and 2 strikes on Chuck Carr. Benito Santiago at third. Brett Barbary down at second. And now the 1-2 pitch to Carr. Struck him out with a high fastball. Great job of pitching by Steve Bedrosian to get out of a real mess in the bottom half of the 9th inning. The Marlins stranding runners at second and third. We're going to extra innings from Joe Robbie Stadium. We go to the top half of the 10th inning, still tied at 3, and the Florida Marlins go to their 4th pitcher of the day as Steve Bedrosian did a great job to send this game into extra innings. John Johnstone now takes over for Rob Mann, who worked 2 scoreless innings, allowed a hit, struck out 2. Johnstone making just his 2nd appearance since being called up from Edmonton, where he was 5-3 with a 4.43 earned run average and 4 saves in 29 games. Johnstone out of Syracuse, New York. .25 years old. He was originally in the New York Mets organization. Been a starting pitcher throughout most of his minor league career until this year. And due up for the Braves, Dave Gallagher, Fred McGriff, and David Justice. With all the injuries the Marlins have had to their pitching staff this year, they have run through a lot of different players on that staff already. Even now, as we look at the disabled list for the Marlins, you've got a couple of starting pitchers, Chris Hammond and Ryan Bowen in the DL. Luis Aquino just rehabbing in the minor leagues now. Jeremy Hernandez is disabled. He did a good job in Brian Harvey's absence out of the bullpen, so they've lost some people that could really help their staff.
And Brian Harvey himself, a long time on the DL.
Just got Perez back. Johnstone's first pitch on the way to Gallagher. Ball 1 low and away. Johnstone's first ever appearance against Atlanta. Out of play, 1 ball, 1 strike.
Pitching coach Frank Rehberger will continue pretty much the philosophy of Marcel Latchman. They work together with the Angels, and they work together here. But that philosophy, for the most part, is aggressive pitching, throw strikes first, then work on changing speeds after that.
Off-speed pitch there. And Gallagher way out in front, 1-2.
Good curveball. You may see more guys on this staff with pure curveballs than any place around. That's a straight downer. Or as they used to call it when we were growing up, a drop.
2 balls, 2 strikes now to Dave Gallagher. Pitched briefly with the Marlins last season in September. He was 0-2 in 7 games. Here's the 2-2 on the way, all the way to the backstop. And the count full 3-2 on Gallagher.
He just doesn't complete his delivery here. Watch his upper body stop. Right there, the right side didn't come all the way through. If you throw a breaking ball that way, it will normally just sit there and spin upstairs. If you throw a fastball, it'll go just about where it does, but where that one did, but it'll be somewhere high.
Fouled off, still 3-2 on Dave Gallagher. Been a long road to the major leagues for Johnstone. He signed all the way back in 1987. Took him 7 years to get to AAA. Strikes out Gallagher with a high fastball. And that's out number 1 on the top of the 10th.
Dave may have chased ball 4 here. Live fastball, tied him up inside about letter high. Take a look from this angle. Was it high? Probably. You know, it's amazing he spent that much time down there, Pete, and couldn't progress any further because the numbers always pretty darn impressive.
Very good.
Good one-loss record, good earned run averages.
He led 2 of the leagues he played in wins. First pitch to McGriff down low, New York Penn League back in 1989. He won 11 games for Pittsfield. That led the league. Playing with St. Lucie in 1990, he was 15-6. That led the Florida State League in wins. On the ground to third, fielded by Magadan. 2 gone in the 10th. And that'll bring up David Justice.
He was also a guy in the minor leagues, a little bit surprising to see. Averaged nearly 7 innings a start in his times down there. In the era that we're in minor league baseball, you don't see guys logging a lot of innings, but he did that.
2 away, bases empty for Justice, who tonight is 1 for 3 at a single back in the 5th inning. Breaking ball low, ball 1. And it's 2-0 now on Justice. Johnstone, a 20th round draft pick of the Mets back in '87. There's a strike. It's 2-1. Three and 1 the count now on Justice. This is the 8th extra inning game of the year for the Braves. Braves are 6-1 in extra innings. Only the 3rd extra inning game of the year for the Marlins. They're 2-0. That's a foul ball, and the count full 3-2.
Johnstone's not afraid to throw his off-speed pitches behind in the count. Went 3-1 with the breaking ball. Got the change up there. He would get a lot more guys to swing at that curveball if he threw a few more strikes with it early in the count.
Here's the 3-2 pitch to Justice. Fouled off at the plate. Still 3-2. Official score is finally crediting David Justice with an RBI in the 1st inning. They're just making that announcement now. That's the way it should have been all along. So give Justice an RBI back in the 1st when he reached on that error. And with 2 outs in the 10th inning, he walks.
That is the first base on ball issued by either pitching staff tonight.
And it took us to the top half of the 10th inning. You don't very often see that. Javi Lopez 0 for 4 tonight. 2 strikeouts and 2 flyouts. 1 to center, 1 to right. And again, he falls behind with that curveball. 1 ball, no strikes. As a starting pitcher at Edmonton last year, Johnstone averaged nearly 8 strikeouts per start. Another curveball. Again, it's low, 2-0.
See, he's throwing a heck of a curveball. That is a straight down breaker. Good spin, good break, good speed on it, but that's absolutely useless unless you can get some of them into strike zone or throw enough strikes with other pitches that you get hitters to swing at it. They're not going to chase it when you're throwing it on your first pitch and then following it with another one out of the strike zone.
3-0 now on Lopez. Bill Pecota waits on deck. Lopez walks on 4 straight. Back-to-back walks issued by Johnstone. Runners now at first and second with 2 outs. Frank Rehberger out for a chat with Johnstone.
The way Javi Lopez approached that, I wonder if he had the green light 3-0, because he looked like he wasn't just taking, he was getting ready to hit.
Now Jarvis Brown down at second, a pinch run for David Justice, who's still being bothered by an ailing knee. That walk to Javi Lopez, by the way, finally gets him in double figures. That was his 10th walk of the year. You don't see that very often. Lopez drawing a base on balls. And Bill Pecota, the hitter, with runners at first and second. Pecota tonight 0 for 4. Low, ball 1. Popped him up right side of the infield. Second baseman Brett Barbary and first baseman Greg Colburn. Barbary calls him off and makes the catch. And that's all for Atlanta in the 10th. They leave a pair of runners. We go to the bottom half of the 10th inning, still tied at 3.
Bottom of the 10th inning, tied at 3. Let's take another look at the scoreboard. In the National League, John Roper trailing by 1. He is still on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds. There it is. Chicago beating Doug Drabeck. Traxel making that 2-0 lead stand up. St. Louis by 4 over Colorado. They're halfway through that one. Just underway in Los Angeles. Nothing doing. Just underway in San Diego and in San Francisco, and no score.
A little bit of a defensive different look in the outfield for Atlanta now as Jarvis Brown stays in the game to play left. Kelly's still in center, and Dave Gallagher now moves over to right field. Steve Bedrosian out for his second inning, and Dave Magadan will lead off the bottom of the 10th for the Marlins. He has singled, doubled, grounded out twice. Right down the middle for a called strike.
This is a nice little vote of confidence for Steve Bedrosian after having a little bit of a struggle up in Montreal. And I'll tell you, he did a heck of a job last inning of leaving him standing out there.
Here comes the 0-1. It's low. 1 ball, 1 strike. One thing about being a relief pitcher, you normally don't have to wait those 4 days if you have a bad outing like starters do to get back in there.
One of the greatest assets you can have is a short memory, too.
Here's the 1-1. Good fastball. 1-2 the count now, and Magadan. The 1-2 pitch on the way almost hit him. 2-2.
Talking to Greg Maddox and Steve Bedrosian and Leo Mazzoni last night about pitching and about the philosophy that this ball club has of not burning a pitcher. If he gives you 1 inning or 2 innings, they don't stick him out there for 4 or 5. They'll use the whole bullpen. That way everybody stays fresh.
And Magadan went. He's out on strikes. Second strikeout for Bedrosian, out number 1 here in the bottom of the 10th.
Both players talking about having been places where you send a reliever out there, let's say in a game where you're down 3-1, and maybe he pitches a good 5th inning, then he pitches a good 6th inning, and then he pitches a good 7th inning, and next thing you know, he either gets battered around or he's effectively out of the mix for 3 or 4 days. Very seldom does that happen here.
Gary Sheffield 0 for 4 tonight, 0 for 9 in the series. Well hit left field. Back for it goes Jarvis Brown. Makes the catch just shy of the track 2 down. That ball was hit hard.
And the frustration's starting to wear just a little bit. He had a good swing, but Bedrosian put that pitch in a good spot on the outer part of the plate. He was right on it, but he only hit it about an inch or so from the end of the bat.
Conine tonight 2 for 3. Also has a sacrifice fly to his credit.
This guy scares me. He is a good inside hitter, and he's a good mistake hitter.
In the air, deep right field, going back. Gallagher still going, makes the catch just shy of the wall. Wow. It turns out to be a 1-2-3 inning for Steve Bedrosian. We go to the 11th. Braves 3, Marlins 3. Rafael Belliard leads off the 11th, 1 for 4. In there for Jeff Blauser tonight, in case you weren't around at the beginning of the game. Blauser having to sit out because of an aggravated rib cage muscle pull. 0-1 on Belliard. Strike. Jose Oliva, just called up from Richmond in time for yesterday's game, is going to get his first major league at bat. He's on deck. In for a strike, 1-2.
Good curveball right there. On most of the others, Johnstone has been locking himself up. That left leg landing more toward third base, not allowing the upper half of the body to come over, across and toward the first baseline.
Fouled off by Belliard, still 1-2. John Johnstone with the 1-2 pitch. Down the left field line, but foul. And it remains a ball and 2 strikes on Rafi.
A hanging curveball that Johnstone gets away with. Santiago wants it down and away. That's inside by 6 inches, and he's lucky Belliard didn't pick up his first homer in a long time.
Again, the 1-2. On the play right side. The 1-2 to Belliard is up high. 2 balls, 2 strikes. In the air to deep left field, going back for it. Conine still going, makes the catch. Almost didn't get his glove up there in time. And Belliard robbed of extra bases. 1 down.
Thanks to a good play by his left fielder here. Chase this one down. Just in the nick of time grabs it. Thanks to that play, Johnstone got away with another hanging curveball.
And now making his major league debut, Jose Oliva, called up when Terry Pendleton went on the disabled list. 23 years old, from the Dominican Republic, came over from the Texas Rangers in the Charlie Leibrandt trade. Guy's got good power.
Normally he doesn't get cheated either, Pete.
1 ball, no strikes. Compiled those numbers at Richmond this year. Hit 21 home runs at Richmond last year. In for a strike, 1-1. Greg Olson throwing in the Atlanta bullpen. One to Oliva. Grounded foul down the third baseline. One man out, base is empty, and a tie game here in the top half of the 11th. High fastball gets Oliva. Second strikeout for Johnstone. 2 gone in the 11th, and now Roberto Kelly.
We don't have access to the radar gun, but he turned this one loose. He wants it down and away. It's up and in, but that had some giddy up on it.
Roberto Kelly tonight, 3/4 of the way to the cycle. He has a single, a double, and a triple. One ball, no strikes. Curveball drops in for a strike. It's 1-1. Greg McMichael also up in the Atlanta bullpen now. One and two, the count on Kelly.
What that normally means is if the game stays tied, you will see Olson. If the Braves get a run here, you'll see McMichael.
Albert Hall, the only Atlanta Brave to ever hit through the cycle. And now the 1-2. On the ground to short. Abbott on the first in time. 1, 2, 3. Go the Braves in the 11th. We go to the bottom half. Still tied.
Bottom of the 11th, still tied at 3 apiece. 2 more games here. Tomorrow night we'll have it for you right here on TBS, 7 o'clock. First pitch somewhere in the neighborhood of 7:05. Terry Matthews on the mound for the Marlins. Greg Maddux will be on the mound for the Braves. And then the final game of the series, a 6 o'clock affair on Sunday. Sports South will bring that to you. That matchup is Dave Weathers against Tom Lavin.
And as we go to the bottom half of the 11th inning, Greg Olson, the new Atlanta pitcher, he has struggled, making his 10th appearance since coming up from Richmond on that rehab assignment. 8 in the 3rd innings, 13 hits, 1 homer, 9 walks, and 6 strikeouts for Olson. He replaces Bedrosian, who worked 2 scoreless innings, giving up 1 hit, striking out 2. Brian Harvey up now in the Marlins bullpen. Due up for the Marlins, Greg Colburn, Benito Santiago, and Brett Barbery. Crowd tonight of 35,156. A few more than we had last night. And here's Greg Colburn to lead it off. He is 1 for 4 tonight, an infield single driving in a Marlin run back in the first. Olson's pitched twice on this road trip. He had a very good inning in a game up in Philadelphia, maybe the best he's looked since coming to Atlanta, but he followed that up with a bad outing in Montreal.
He thought he was back after Philadelphia. I was talking to him about it. He felt better about his curveball. He was throwing it for strikes. He was spotting his fastball. As he says, I live and die with the curveball. If I'm getting it over, I can get people out.
Outside corner for a strike, 0-1.
Tries to get the feeling of reaching out and pulling the bottom out from under the ball, pulling his hand right back toward him.
Looped into shallow center field. Kelly coming on. Can't get to it. Base hit for Coburn to start the bottom of the 11th. His second hit of the night. And hit number 9 for the Marlins. That'll bring up Benito Santiago. He's 2 for 4, a single and a double. Not called on very often to bunt. See what he's doing here with nobody out and the runner at first.
That throw over there for 2 reasons. One, to keep Coburn a little bit closer, but hopefully with the quick movement by Olson, you might get Santiago to commit as to whether or not he was bunting, and I couldn't see anything.
He is squaring, gets the bunt down, but foul down the first baseline.
You can tell guys who either A, aren't very happy to be bunting, or B, aren't very good at it when they are, because they kind of give you the little jab effort at it rather than deadening the ball like we saw Abbott do earlier.
Santiago's only had 1 sacrifice bunt all year. Here's the 0-1. Gets the bunt down. It's a good one. Toward third. Pacota's throw on to first. Lemke is in time. Down to second goes Greg Coburn. So now the Marlins have a potential winning run down at second with 1 man out.
Sometimes a guy who isn't called on the sacrifice a lot might be better off trying to bunt for a base hit. We've seen Santiago lay down a bunt like this and beat it out. This time he gets the good sacrifice out of it, and only a good play by Pecota keeps him from getting that base hit.
It'll bring up Brett Barbary. Barbary 0 for 2 with a pair of sacrifices tonight. They're underway now at Candlestick with Montreal jumping on top of the Giants 2-0 after an inning. Montreal begins the night a game and a half behind Atlanta. Pitch to Barbary. Outside corner with a fastball, 0-1.
I think a guy like Barbary up, Pete, allows you to play your outfield in a little bit closer, so if there is a base hit, you have a shot at maybe getting a play at the plate.
Curved ball stayed inside. 1 ball and strike. Brown fairly deep in left field. In fact, that's kind of a strange alignment. He's the deepest of the 3 outfielders. You think he'd be the shallowest with Barbary batting left-handed. Here's the 1-1. Good block by Lopez. 2-1.
I'm a little surprised to see him still that deep, because Barbary is probably going to pull any curveball down in the strike zone, but anything up in the air, he's going to hit it toward left center or left field. That deep, slim chance of throwing out a base runner.
Here's the 2-1. 3-1. Kurt Abbott waits on deck. He'd like to lower that. Now they're going to intentionally walk Barbary. Trying to get a double play ball out of Abbott. First and second with 1 out. Kurt Abbott tonight 0 for 2 with a sac fly and a sacrifice bunt in there as well. One man out, runners first and second. And the pitch. Breaking ball outside, 1 ball, no strikes. One man out with runners first and second here in the bottom of the 11th. Here comes the 1-0. Caught the inside corner. It's 1 ball, 1 strike.
It's a good curveball right there. Olson is one of those pitchers, he will tell you, that changes the break and the speed on his curveball by changing the length of the stride. He doesn't always land in the same spot.
Now the 1-1. Into left field for a base hit. It bobbled by Jarvis Brown. Around third is Colburn. He will score, and the Marlins win it in the bottom half of the 11th inning by a final score of 4-3 on a game-winning single by Kurt Abbott.
The final hit, a breaking ball that stays up in the strike zone. He's very patient, gets a good swing. Jarvis Brown kind of iffy here as to whether or not he can make the play. Once it bounces in front of him, might as well stick it in your pocket, because that would have scored Colburn from second. Marlins win it 4-3. We'll be back with the totals and the player of the game after this timeout. Marlins win it in 11, 4-3, the final score. Our player of the game, with one swing of the bat, became our Armor All player of the game. He had himself a good night defensively, a couple of sacrifice bunts, 1 out of 3, 2 RBIs. The big one coming in the 11th inning, and that is Kurt Abbott. Here are your totals for the Marlins: 4 runs, 10 hits in air, and 9 stranded. For the Braves, 3-10-1, 9 also stranded. A couple of guys getting their first decision. Johnstone the winner, Olson the loser, just a shade under 3 hours, and another good crowd here of just above 35,000. Watch the Marlins win it 4-3.
So the Braves lead over Montreal, now down to 1 game, and Montreal could get to within a half game if they beat the Giants tonight. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, game 3 of this series, Greg Maddux against Terry Matthews. We'll have it for you beginning at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Coming up next on TBS, the WCW Clash of the Champions. Stay tuned for that. Until tomorrow night, for Don Sutton, Skip Carey, Joe Simpson, our entire TBS crew, Pete Van Wieren from Joe Robbie Stadium, where tonight the Marlins beat the Braves in 11, 4-3. So long, everyone.